By the time all but one of the missing parts were eventually located, the Starship Titanic was within sight of the planet Yasaka. Returning home was always the jailer's favourite thing in life. Soon he would have his feet up beside a blazing hearth. A jug of old-fashioned beer would be in his hand, and his family would be running here and there, preparing the evening meal or playing games on the porch in the setting sun. He was therefore whistling a rather jolly tune as he unlocked the cell door and indicated to Dan that he was a free man. Had Dan been more musical, he would have recognized the jailer's tune as none other than Mademoiselle from Armentières, a French tune popular during the First World War. The reason why the jailer came to be whistling it is not unconnected to the smuggling of French champagne to Blerontin via the time warp previously mentioned. For, if the truth were known, the jailer was none other than Corporal Pilliwidley Pillipitit, the notorious smuggler and leader of the infamous Pilliwidley Pillipitit gang, which was one of the unpleasant manifestations of organised crime that had sprung up since the ruin of the Yasakan economy. Pilliwidley Pillipitit had disguised himself as an ordinary corporal in the Yasakan space fleet in order to reconnoitre the Starship Titanic for possible plunder at a later date. But that is another story. The moment he was free, Dan made a beeline for Lucy, who was standing on the captain's bridge with the journalist and Nettie, watching the great globe of the approaching planet through the window. "Lucy," he whispered, "can we go and talk somewhere private?" "Not now," Lucy whispered back. "Look, isn't that the most amazing sight you've ever seen?" "It reminds me of your breasts," murmured the journalist. Dan managed to hold himself back, and instead of nearly killing the journalist on the spot, he grabbed Lucy by the arm and dragged her to the other end of the bridge. "You threw yourself at him. He said you did." Dan was trying to sound more indignant and accusing than plaintive, but it was coming out more like a total and utter whinge. "Dan, it was just a weak moment." "Why, have you never had any weak moments with me in 13 years? "Just what the hell are you talking about, Dan? We have a great sex life, don't we?" Lucy was getting mad at him. "Well, yes, it's just—" "You're so goddamn jealous. You think I'm screwing every man who finds me attractive." "Oh, no, I never said that." As usual, Dan could feel the conversation spiralling out of his control. As it happened, however, he was rescued from the inevitable dialectical humiliation by a remarkable and dangerous turn of events that was to alter the whole course of this story. Bolfas had been pointing out the continents and countries of Yasaka to Nettie. He felt his heart beating fast, partly with the pride he felt in his own world, but more because Nettie had taken hold of his arm, and was now beside him, gazing out of the window in wonder and admiration. Bolfas could have practically swooned on the spot. He could smell the scent of that beautiful creature beside him. He could feel the gentle touch of her soft hands upon his arm, and he could feel her heart beating behind her firm breast close against him. Bolfas hardly knew what he was saying. "And there, dear lady, you can see the ocean of summer plastering. That is the land known as fine pottery. Oh, and over there, dear lady, if you were to turn your eyes, you can see my own country, Carpenter's Islands. It is a fine place, peopled by noble craftsmen and technicians of the highest quality. Oh, at least it was before." Bolfas's voice seemed to crack, so that Nettie glanced down at him. His rugged features were clouded by a furrow of sadness. "Before what, Captain Bolfas?" Nettie asked softly. "Ah, Nettie, I don't want to burden you with the problems of our world," replied the gallant captain. "I should like to know." Nettie took the captain's hand in hers and stroked it gently, and I think the good captain would have fainted then and there for sheer pleasure, had not a movement around the perimeter of the planet distracted him. "Rawdon, what's that?" Bolfas had suddenly become tense. The navigational engineer peered into the distant haze around Yasaka. He put his binofocals to his eyes, and an involuntary gasp escaped him. "Blerontinians!" Bolfas grabbed the binofocals. Yes, he could see clearly a whole fleet of fighter spaceships with Blerontinian registration plates, but no other markings. They were clearly not official Blerontin space fleet. "Mercenaries," muttered Asmal. "They mean trouble," said Yellin. "Quick!" yelled Bolfas. "Every man to arms, and turn off the SD feature. We shall shoot real ammunition." There was a buzz amongst the Yasakans as they leapt into action, grabbing weapons and racing to predetermined positions. The idea of firing real ammunition instead of simulated destruction charges was both terrible and exciting. It was one thing to use live ammunition against the outside hull of the starship, but shooting live rounds actually inside the ship would mean damage on a grand scale. There would be an enormous amount of exciting repair work to look forward to. Bolfas's face suddenly darkened, and he turned gravely to Nettie. "Nettie, I am so sorry to do this, and I hope you will be able to forgive me. But I must, regretfully, ask you and your friends to retire to a safe quarter, whilst we are engaged with the enemy." While Bolfas had been saying this, the Blerontinian mercenaries had streaked, at just under light speed, up to the starship, and had now surrounded it. There must have been 50 or 60 craft, a typical rag-bag assortment of spaceships converted to military use. Such ad hoc fleets had become a familiar sight in the space skies around this sector of the galaxy, ever since the breakdown of economic cooperation between worlds and the destabilization of the Intergalactic Security Council. Suddenly a harsh voice boomed out over the starship's loudspeaker system. "This is the official space fleet of the Magna Corps Insurance Company of Blerontin. We are acting under license, and according to Blerontinian law, on behalf of the loss adjusters appointed to liquidate the remaining assets of the Starstruct Construction Company, Starship Titanic Holdings Limited, and Starlight Travel, Inc. On behalf of the above-named insurance company, we hereby repossess this starship as lawful property of the said insurance company. Please leave quietly and in an orderly fashion." "Snork piddlers!" yelled Bolfas. He knew how to work the voice system, and his voice rang round the mercenary spaceship. "We built this ship. We lavished our care and craftsmanship upon it without stint and without grudge. We bought the finest materials and ran into debt trying to meet the wonderfully high specifications ordered by Mr. Leovinus. We were never paid a penny. Then, when the construction was taken from us, we and our families were faced with poverty and hunger. This ship is ours by every moral right in the galaxy. What is more, we claim it by right of salvage. We found it, and we have brought it back to its rightful place. Go suck yourselves!" Even as he spoke, 4 of the mercenary boarding craft were clanged into the side of the starship. Grappling irons were attached to the hull, and the airlocks of the Titanic were broached from the outside. At the same moment, the air around the mercenaries burst into light and smoke and noise as the Yasikans launched a furious counterattack. All this while, Nettie, Dan, Lucy, and the journalist had found themselves back under arrest and being hurried towards the cells by half a dozen agitated Yasikan guards. They were about halfway along the Grand Axial Canal when an advance patrol of Blerontinian mercenaries suddenly burst out of the embarkation lobby and opened fire. The 3 Earth people and the journalist threw themselves onto the floor, but the Yasikans, used as they were to SD weapons, hesitated for a second, and in that second they lost it. Corporal Inchby-Wiglet and Corporal Kazitinka-Rigapital made it to the deck, but Corporals Yarktak, Bunsleywater, Tidaloft, and Forzab received direct hits. They clutched their chests, and their weapons clattered to the floor. Nettie was the first to throw herself onto one of the fallen weapons, and without hesitation she turned it on the mercenaries. Considering she had never even handled a shotgun back on Earth, Nettie seemed to master the Yasikan blaster with remarkable ease. It seemed obvious to her where to hold it, and she'd noticed the trigger just below one of the firing chambers. She aimed it, squeezed the trigger, and flame blasted out of the barrels, and 2 mercenaries fell to the ground. "No, no!" yelled Corporal Inchby-Wiglet in alarm. "Aim above their heads!" "Not on your life!" yelled Nettie, and brought down another Blerontinian. By this time, Lucy, Dan, and the journalist had each grabbed hold of another of the spare weapons, and started blasting away at their attackers. Their Yasikan guards were clearly shocked. The Blerontinians, for their part, were taken totally by surprise. They were used to standing up to the fury of Yasikan SD guns, and, in extreme circumstances, they were used to Yasikans firing over their heads. But this was something new. It was also very alarming. The few Blerontinians who remained standing looked at their fallen comrades. They looked back at their adversaries, who even now were blasting straight at them, and, without waiting for another volley to hit them, they turned and fled. The Yasikan guards were flabbergasted. Never in the history of their nation had Blerontinians fled before Yasikan gunfire. Nettie, meanwhile, had raced forwards to the doors of the embarkation lobby. There she continued to blast away at the retreating Blerontinians, but the mercenaries were already back in the airlock and had slammed the door shut. "Mind the paintwork!" gasped Corporal Inchby-Wiglet. "Well done!" cried Dan, who had just reached Nettie. She was breathing hard, and Dan could feel the heat coming off her body as he stood close behind her. Suddenly she spun round. "Oh, my God! The bomb!" She pulled the mobile phone from her pocket. "Two," said the bomb. "One." "Hi, Bomb, it's Nettie." "Hi, Nettie." "Are you all right, Bomb?" There was silence. For a moment Dan thought they'd lost it. "Bomb, are you there, Bomb?" Nettie called into the phone. But still the bomb didn't reply. Dan grabbed the phone. "Bomb!" "Oh, of course, let the man do it," said Nettie. Dan wasn't listening to Nettie. "Bomb, are you there? Speak to me." "I was speaking to Nettie," said the bomb in a sulky voice. "Oh," Dan handed the phone back to Nettie. "Sorry." "This is Nettie." Again the bomb remained silent. "Bomb!" Again silence. "Bomb!" A note of urgency had crept into Nettie's voice. "Speak to me." Then the bomb spoke very quietly. "I'm a mega scuttler." "Is that your name?" asked Nettie. "Yes," said the bomb. "I'm a bomb." "I know you are," replied Nettie. "I like hearing your voice, Nettie." "I like hearing yours, Bomb." "You're not just saying that." "No, I'm not. For an electronic voice, you have a very soft one. It's nice." For a moment, Nettie thought the bomb was crying. "Won't you start counting down again for me?" "If you'd really like me to." "Oh, yes," said Nettie. "Very well," said the bomb. "I'll count. Just for you, Nettie. But this is the last time. 1,999. Nettie had been so intent upon her purpose of stopping the bomb that she hadn't realized how terrified she'd been. But the next moment she found out. Her knees gave way, and she fell into Dan's arms that were suddenly there to catch her. Bolfas stood on the captain's bridge of the Starship Titanic, and could not believe his eyes as he watched the Blerontinian mercenaries beat a retreat into their boarding craft. "What on Yassica's going on?" he exclaimed. "Blerontinians don't just give up like that. They usually fight to our last man." But for good measure he ordered another salvo of spacefire, and the blackness around the mercenaries' craft exploded again with light and noise. In less time than it takes for a snork to poop on a plate, the ragtag flotilla had turned about, and with a blast of white-hot rocketry the Los Adjustas space fleet disappeared into the stars beyond the beautiful green planet of Yassica. At that very moment Dan and Nettie burst onto the captain's bridge again. "You should be in the cells," snapped Bolfas. "They shot straight at the enemy." Corporal Inchby-Wiglet had suddenly appeared behind them. "That's why the mercenaries ran off." "We've got to do something about the bomb," cried Nettie. "It says this will be its last countdown." Bolfas looked very grave indeed. "You aimed directly at the Blerontinians?" he said. "Well, is that what you meant to do?" asked Nettie. "No, it is not," exclaimed Bolfas. "We have a strict moral code. My dear lady, I'm sure you didn't mean to actually aim at them." "Well, of course you did." Dan was getting a bit short-tempered. "It's the only way to stop them. What are we going to do about the bomb?" "They ran off like Zippo as soon as they realized Nettie was firing at them," exclaimed Inchby-Wiglet enthusiastically. "I shall have to put you all under arrest." "Captain Bolfas," said Nettie in her most charming voice, "we are ignorant of your ways on Yassica, and can only react as Earth people. And on Earth, I'm afraid, people aim to kill and maim each other. That's what weapons are for. I don't like it, but that's how it is. We didn't mean to infringe your code of honor. We just tried to save you and the Starship from the Los Adjustas. Now listen." And she flipped on the mobile phone. 922. The bomb was still counting. "We've got 13 minutes. "Very well," said Bolfas, still stern-faced. "We shall have to apologize to the Blerontinians." "But they were trying to kill you!" exclaimed Nettie. "That is because they have no moral code that forbids them," replied Bolfas with undeniable logic. "I shall write the letter of apology as soon as I get a spare moment." "If we don't do something about the bomb," exclaimed Dan, "we're all of us going to be nothing but spare moments." "You are right," said Bolfas. "I shall have it diffused at once." Nettie insisted on being with the bomb while it was defused. I feel I owe it to it, she said when Dan tried to dissuade her. Besides, if it goes off, it doesn't matter where on the ship any of us are. The Yaskin bomb disposal expert agreed as he put his tool bag down beside the bomb. 434, said the bomb. Hi, bomb, said Nettie. 433, said the bomb. Nettie somehow knew it was not going to let itself be interrupted. This was the last countdown. How are you feeling, bomb? Nettie asked. Please don't talk to it while I'm diffusing it, said the bomb disposal expert. It could be dangerous. Have you got enough time? Asked Dan. 432, said the bomb. Depends, said the bomb disposal expert, unscrewing a metal plate from the cabinet. If it keeps counting at this speed, I should be okay, but sometimes on the last countdown they can speed up. This is an 8D96 full-force Mega Scuttler. If it was an 8G or even a 9A, we'd be fine. They put a servo control mechanism in to stop that problem, but with the 8D, well, you just never know. This seems to be all in order. While he had been talking, the bomb disposal expert had removed the metal plate and exposed a dull red button which read, Defuse the bomb. Fortunately, on the 8D, they still included this automatic diffuser, just to make it simple for us bomb disposal experts. He pressed the button. Immediately, the bomb stopped counting. There was a pause. Then a siren went off. The red button saying, Defuse the bomb, lit up and started flashing, and a glass cover slid across the button, preventing anyone from touching it. Wait a mo, said the bomb disposal expert. This doesn't seem to be quite right. Congratulations, said the bomb. You have successfully defused the 8D96 full-force Mega Scuttler. The Mega Scuttler, however, is linked into the intelligence cyber system of this starship, and unfortunately that system is currently incomplete. The bomb has therefore gone into default mode. Please refer to manual. Where's the manual? Asked the bomb disposal expert, his voice betraying an edge of what Nettie, although she desperately tried to find a more comforting word, could only categorize as panic. You're the bomb disposal expert, said Dan helpfully. Meanwhile, Nettie had discovered a small booklet tucked under the bomb cabinet. She riffled through the pages. How to preset the timer for cooking large joints, she read. That's the manual for the gas oven, exclaimed the bomb disposal expert, grabbing it off Nettie and starting to read it avidly. Any technical manual was of interest to a Yasikan. It was the sort of thing in which they could always find solace and escape, especially when under pressure. Meanwhile, Dan and Nettie scoured the engine room for the right manual. By the time the bomb disposal expert said, Look, it has the self-cleaning function, Dan had found the easy-to-use manual for the 8D96 full-force Mega Scuttler, your user-friendly bomb, stuffed behind some water pipes. The 8D96 full-force Mega Scuttler is designed to be the ultimate user-friendly exploding device, he read. All operations are simple and self-explanatory. Give me that, cried the bomb disposal expert, snatching the manual from Dan's hands. A default mode, he read. Once the bomb has gone into default mode as a result of an incomplete intelligence system on board ship, the following conditions will apply. You will not be able to reach the defuse button. You will not be able to touch the bomb or the bomb cabinet. You will not be able to do anything any more to the bomb, so leave it alone. Do you understand? Good. The 8D96 full-force Mega Scuttler will now explode in exactly 6 million days from the commencement of default mode. Shit, said Dan. Shit, said Nettie. Shit, said the bomb disposal expert. How long is a Dormillion day? It was Nettie who was the first to ask the obvious question. 36 Dormillion hours, said the bomb disposal expert. How long's a Dormillion hour? Asked Dan. 78 Dormillion minutes, said the bomb disposal expert. It's about, well, how can I tell you? There's no point of reference. The three of them thought for some time, and were just about to agree that it was impossible to convey any idea of time from one star system to another, when Nettie said, Got it! Now, I won't tell you how she worked it out, but it was pretty clever. If you can't work it out for yourself, you'll have to write to the publishers of this audiobook for a self-explanatory leaflet entitled, How Nettie Worked Out the Length of a Dormillion Day. So, 6 Dormillion days must be roughly equivalent to 10 Earth days, said Nettie after a few quick calculations. God, Nettie, said Dan, you're so clever. Why didn't I think of that? The trio had just reported back to the bridge of the Starship. "How do we get it out of default mode?" Bolfas was questioning the bomb disposal expert. "Our only hope is to find the missing central core of the ship's intelligence," said the bomb disposal expert. "If we can replace that, then I can probably defuse the bomb. Otherwise it'll blow in 6 million days." Bolfas turned to his assembled crew. "Men, you hear the seriousness of this situation. Our beloved home of Yasica has been ruined by the construction of this starship and the failure of the Blerontinians to honor their debts. We built in good faith. We put our entire way of life at risk to construct the most fabulous and beautiful starcraft the galaxy has ever seen. The Blerontinians betrayed our trust. The only chance our world has of returning to its former prosperity is by our repossession of the Starship Titanic. If it is blown up by this treacherous bomb, the future of our world is grim indeed. Therefore, I command you to search this ship again. I know we have scoured every last inch of it, but that Central Intelligence Corps must be on board somewhere, and we must find it." At this moment a scream was heard over the loudspeaker system. "Lucy!" exclaimed Dan. I have to explain what had happened to Lucy and the journalist since the brief exchange of gunfire outside the embarkation lobby. The moment Nettie, Dan, and Corporal Inchby Wiglet ran after the retreating Blerontinians, the journalist grabbed Lucy and pulled her into a side chamber off the Grand Axial Canal. "What on earth are you doing there?" exclaimed Lucy, although it was pretty obvious that the journalist was undoing the buttons of her pinstripe power suit as fast as he possibly could, whilst at the same time apparently trying to see how far into her ear he could stick his tongue. "There!" cried Lucy. "Stop it!" No, moaned the journalist. "Once we Blerontinian males have been aroused by a female, it takes us many, many years, sometimes a lifetime, to get de-aroused vis-à-vis that particular female." "What are you saying there?" cried Lucy. "Marry me, Lucy!" cried the journalist, burying his face in her now exposed bra. "Oh, yes, she screamed. "Squawk!" screamed something else. "We can get engaged and have a white wedding and a wedding cake, and Dan can give the best man's speech, and we'll have a honeymoon!" exclaimed the journalist. "Squawk!" "Darling, cried Lucy, tears in her eyes. "What am I doing? What am I saying?" Part of Lucy's legal training had suddenly started to reassert itself. It was something on the lines of, "Don't commit to anything that you may later regret." But I'm getting married to Dan. We're going to run a hotel. What was that squawk?" "Squawk!" said the thing that was squawking. "It was that!" exclaimed the journalist. And suddenly a large parrot flew out of the dark recesses of the room and landed on the journalist's shoulder. It was at that moment that Lucy screamed. And as she screamed, as luck would have it, she had inadvertently put her hand down on one of the ship's intercom buttons, with the result that her scream was relayed all round the Starship Titanic. "Squawk!" said the parrot. "Bloody genius!" Back on the captain's bridge, Bolfas pricked up his ears. "What did that parrot say?" "Bloody genius!" screamed the parrot over the intercom. "Parrot!" yelled Captain Bolfas. "What are you telling us?" Why is Captain Bolfas so interested in what a parrot says? Nettie had turned to Corporal Inchby Wiglet. "In Yasican tradition," whispered Corporal Inchby Wiglet, "parrots are the messengers of truth. We have a saying, from the mouths of babes and parrots." "Parrot!" Bolfas yelled into the intercom. "We're looking for the missing Central Intelligence Corps for Titania's brain. Do you know where it is?" There was a silence. "Parrot!" yelled Bolfas. But Lucy had removed her hand from the intercom button and was now using it to caress the journalist's face as if his smooth features were a fortune-teller's crystal ball. She had no idea why she had said yes to everything he had just suggested, and she thought she had probably made a terrible mistake. If only she could see the future in those strange orange-coloured eyes of his. "You're crazy," she said. "Oh," moaned the journalist, and he chewed her bra strap with his teeth. "Ah," said Lucy. "Ah," murmured the journalist. "Ah," replied Lucy. "Oh," he said. "Oh, ah, oh," added Lucy. "Yeah, asked the journalist. "Ah," confirmed Lucy. "Ah?" asked the journalist again. "Ah," repeated Lucy. "Oh," The journalist was almost lost for words at this point, but Lucy carried on the conversation. "Oh," she said. "Ah!" He wondered how she could be so certain. "Ah!" She was absolutely certain now. "Ah!" And at that moment the entire company from the captain's bridge burst into the side chamber off the Grand Axial Canal, and stood riveted to the spot, while they watched a highly qualified lawyer from Wilshire Boulevard and an underachieving member of the Blerentinian Press Corps doing the sort of things to each other that give inexpressible delight and pleasure to the participants, but which only tend to provoke ridicule from casual observers, and about which, therefore, I will not go into detail. Suffice it to say that the moment the bridge party burst into the room, the parrot gave the loudest squawk it had given up to date, and Lucy fell off the table onto the journalist's face. "Lucy!" exclaimed Dan. "Parrot!" yelled Bolfas. "Where is the missing intelligence core for Titania's brain?"
"Bloody genius!"
squawked the parrot. "Don't talk rubbish!" shouted Bolfas.
"Bloody genius!"
screamed the parrot. "I asked you a question!" yelled Bolfas. Also, according to Yassican tradition, parrots were supposed to answer any questions put to them.
"Squawk!"
The parrot momentarily forgot its powers of speech. "Answer my question!"
"Squawk!"
The parrot flew off the journalist's shoulder, where it had managed to keep its perch despite all the passionate goings-on with Lucy, and disappeared into the shadows at the further end of the chamber. "Damn it!" Bolfas knew it was bad luck if a parrot refused to answer your question. "I can explain everything," Lucy was telling Dan. "No, you can't. You can't explain anything," screamed Dan. And Lucy suddenly thought, he's right. He's absolutely right. Perhaps that is your answer. It was Nettie who had suddenly stepped forward and taken Captain Bolfas by the arm. "Dear lady, it is good of you to trouble yourself with this matter, but I fear the parrot has not given any reply. I am doomed." "But didn't you tell me that this starship was designed by some genius?" "Leovinus!" exclaimed the journalist. "He was here on the ship when we crashed on Earth. Or maybe he has the missing part." It was all so clear to Nettie, although she didn't know why. Something clicked in the journalist's mind. "Of course!" he exclaimed. "When Leovinus ran off the ship, he was brandishing this glowing silver shard in his hand." "The Central Core Intelligence!" exclaimed Bolfas. "That's why it isn't on the ship." He was putting two and two together, but rather slowly. Nettie decided to take over the deduction process. "In order to get the missing Central Intelligence Core for the ship's system, we've got to find this Leovinus character. Leovinus is on the Earth, but we can't get to the Earth because we don't know where it is, and the only way to find out where it is to get hold of the missing Central Intelligence Core and refit it into Titania's brain. Gentlemen, we're screwed." It was then that the docking siren sounded. The Starship Titanic was preparing itself for landing on the planet of Yassica. The celebration party was a gloomy affair. Everyone tried to make the best of it and kept toasting the Earth folk for their invaluable help in beating off the insurance loss adjusters. Several speeches were made extolling the return of the great starship to its rightful home, but nobody could forget that within a couple of days the ship would have to be towed off to some distant part of the galaxy, where it could explode without doing any more harm than destroy itself. The Yassicans could see no prospect of recovering their economy. Meanwhile, Lucy, Dan, and Nettie could see no prospect of ever returning to their own planet. They had each been given translation blisters, like small plasters worn behind the ear, so they could still communicate now they were away from the influence of the ship's automatic systems. But that had done little to reconcile them to the prospect of exile on an alien world. "But surely," Rodden, the navigational engineer, had cornered Nettie, "you must have some idea of where this Earth place is. I mean, you must at least know whether it is in the notional northern hemisphere of the galaxy or the notional south." "Well, no." "Is it on an outer or an inner arm of the spiral?" I haven't a clue," said Nettie. Rodden shook his head gloomily. He hated talking to dumb blondes. "Well, if you really have no idea where you've come from, I really can't get you back there. The only thing that could